What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and in today's video, I'm gonna share with you the best return I've received on any investment that I have ever made. So with all of that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, I've been investing in real estate for the last 9+ years. I currently own over 160 units of residential real estate, a couple storage units, and a couple other small businesses. I've had the opportunity to look at the ROI on literally thousands of different investments, and I'm here to tell you that this is the best return I've ever received on any investment that I've ever made. And I truly believe that after watching this video, you'll be able to land a return just like this. I know that's a very bold statement, but I promise you it's true. All that I ask you to do is remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell, and let's jump right into things. Now, the first thing I need to break down is what is the ROI, or the return on investment. And in very simple terms, it's essentially what kind of return you get on your initial investment. And a lot of times this is just a ratio showing your initial investment compared to the end return you're going to get on that initial investment. Now, the interesting thing about an ROI is a lot of different people determine the return on their investment in a lot of different ways. I'm sure you've heard of things like the cash on cash return, or the IRR, or the cap rate, or the gross profit, or the net profit. There are a myriad of these different terms that either show up as some form of ratio, whether it's for your cash flow, or your profits for the year, or your profits for 5 years, or whatever it might be. The whole goal of all of these is to figure out what your return on investment is going to be. Now, they all have different benefits, and they're all kind of breaking down the return in a slightly different way. Two that I like to talk about a lot are the cash on cash return, or the cap rate. The cash on cash return tells you what kind of return you're going to get on your initial investment when it comes to cash flow, and it takes into consideration everything from your expenses to your loan to a myriad of other things. Where the cap rate does a similar thing, except for it doesn't take into consideration your financing. It evaluates the property as if it's been purchased in cash. Now, the reason this is tricky is if you're buying a property with financing and interest rates are atrocious, and you're looking just at cap rate, you might make a very foolish decision because you're looking at the wrong indicator or ratio. You're looking at something that is going to give you a form of return on investment, but that form doesn't matter because it doesn't take into consideration all of the things at play. The point of looking at your return on investment is to see your true return for your situation and what you want to get as a result. An example of this might be that someone will say, hey, the return on investment on this property was 1,000%. And you're like, oh, wow, that sounds incredible. And then they tell you, yeah, they invested this much, and 10,000 years later, well, they would never say this, but 10,000 years later, they had gotten a 1,000% return on their investment. Well, over a 10,000 year period, that's actually a horrible return. But someone could easily be bamboozled because they weren't evaluating it properly. They weren't looking at the correct return on investment for them and what their desired outcome would be. The reason I really want to peg down a definition for return on investment is because there's so many different kinds. And even if you dial it down and you say, hey, all right, we're not looking at cap rate or IRR or any of these other things. We're specifically looking at the cash on cash return. You can have two people in two different markets that might have completely different desires for their cash on cash return. There might be one guy that has a ton of money and he's completely content with an 8% cash on cash return, where there's another guy that has very limited funds and he's gonna be living in the property and he needs to get a 30% cash on cash return. Now, does that mean one is wrong and one is right for holding to their specific criteria? No, because their circumstances are completely different. The other thing I find fascinating about ROI, or return on investment, is anytime this term gets brought into play, immediately your brain goes to money, right? If you're thinking about getting a return on your investment, money is where your brain goes. Numbers is where your brain goes. And I think a lot of us, myself included, have been trained to think that way. However, if you live a life that is completely based on that metric, completely based on money and an ROI on money, I can promise you, you're gonna live a horrible, sucky, terrible life. Alternatively, if you're one of those people that says, yeah, Chandler, seriously, all these people, they're so focused on money when money doesn't matter. Sorry, you're also going to live a horrible, terrible, unsatisfying, difficult, frustrating life. So here's what I've come to find. I believe that in order to figure out a true return on investment, you have to take into consideration all of the things that are truly most important to you. For me, I actually have a list, and on this list, it has marriage, kids, family, friends, health and fitness, spirituality or God, business for my active income, real estate for my passive income, and then my passions and hobbies. You personally have to find all the things that fall into your personal criteria for return on investment. Now, I'm sure there are some of you that have already left the video, and there are others that are saying, okay, Chandler, get to the point. We know there are other things that are more important than money, but what are you getting at? We clicked on the video because we want to know what incredible return on investment you were able to get. About 8 months ago, my brother was diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin lymphoma. 3 weeks later, my wife was diagnosed with colon cancer. So immediately, my whole world was completely flipped upside down. And we dove into surgeries for both of them, to chemotherapy, to all forms of treatment. And in all honesty, a good portion of that was literal hell. I went from a place of feeling like I had everything figured out. I mean, in all honesty, if you go back and look at the videos I was putting out at that time, I felt like I knew everything I needed to know, and I was ready to tell the world. To a massive crash of really depression, followed by a midlife crisis, all while trying to keep my businesses afloat and my family afloat and everything else going, and trying to do the best that I could to help my brother and my wife as they and our whole family went through all of this. Now, this experience was absolutely horrible in a lot of different ways. And I wish I could come to you and say that it gave me this completely new perspective and now I 100% have life figured out, but that's not true. I will be the first to tell you I'm still wading through all of it. However, there have been some incredible things that I've learned through this, and I truly do believe that those things have helped me to get the best return I've ever gotten on any investment of anything throughout my life. And the reason for that is it gave me extreme clarity on my definition of ROI. So here's what I've learned. First off, no one else knows how to live your life better than you. Now, lots of them have lots of experiences that you can pull from, but everyone is so different and their desired return is going to be so different. You have to have your list of things and your criteria, and you have to have it so perfectly dialed in that you know exactly the kind of life you want to get and exactly the kind of return that you want to get on your time and your resources. The next one is only you can reverse engineer from your desired outcome or your desired life to get the proper action steps to take to get that end result and get the return that you want. This means when you go to someone for advice and they say, hey, you need to do this, 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 and this with your life, odds are they're probably wrong or at least slightly off. Now, that doesn't mean you can't learn from it and grow from it and progress from it. But also, if someone's telling you to go and grind 80 hours a week and put in all of this time, when the reality is that's going to deliver an outcome that you don't want, then you shouldn't be doing it. Alternatively, if someone says, hey, you should go and retire and not work and you're gonna be happy because of it, you shouldn't do that either unless you know that's going to give you the desired outcome and return that you personally want. This is one of the things that I think I personally have struggled with more than anything else in my life, and that is living according to what maybe someone else thinks a good ROI would be or a good return would be when I've invested time in things that personally to me didn't really matter. I just felt like I should invest it because maybe the world said I should, or friends said I should, or family said I should. And I was wasting time because that was never going to get me to my desired outcome. I think the greatest epiphany I had is I always knew the life I wanted. I always knew the ROI I was looking for and that I desired. However, there's a very big difference between this life and the life that you actually live. And I see this often with myself, my friends, my family, where this is what they want, but this is what their actions are saying they want. With every aspect of your life, you've got to step back and say, all right, do my actions align with what I'm saying I want? And if they don't, is it because I'm saying the wrong thing and this isn't really what I want? Or is it because I'm not taking the right actions? And this one's extremely difficult because a lot of times our actions are good, but the outcome we really want is great. Or there are sometimes when we say we want an outcome, but then it's really hard to do the actions because the reality is we don't actually want that outcome. So the return that I've gotten that I wanted to share with you in this video is I truly believe that I was able to figure this out, and for the first time in my life, perfectly aligned the life that I wanted with the actions that I was taking. Now, throughout my life, I think I've been very close, but there are certain things that I had to take a step back from and say, man, after going through all of this craziness and seeing how fragile life really is, I don't want to miss a second. But coming to terms with that and consistently reevaluating where you're at and what the life you want is, and if your actions are aligning with that life, and just putting yourself in check consistently has been something that is more beneficial than any investment I've ever made. In order to do this, I came to find that it was figuring out what things were keeping me from my actions aligning with that life that I wanted. And so we're gonna talk about a couple of those. First off, they're uncontrollables. I think cancer is a great uncontrollable. You can have a life you really want, and if you get cancer or your family gets cancer, your actions of, hey, this is the life I want and it's happy and it's awesome and it's, going on hikes and it's spending time with my family and it's having all of this time to do X, Y, and Z. Well, sorry, you don't get all of those things because it was out of your control. There's nothing that you can do to take it away, to make it not have happened, and to make them not happen in the future. They're going to be there. But next, you've got to do whatever you can to let them steal as little time and resources as possible. Because a lot of times, uncontrollables, they'll get you wound up in depression and anxiety and frustration, and they'll steal way more than you need to let them steal. This last year of my life was the year where my kids were 2 years old and 4 years old. And I'm never going to get that year back. So both me and my wife and my brother and our families, we had to come to terms with the fact of, yeah, this uncontrollable happened and it's thrown a major kink in the life that we want, but we have to let that kink be as small as possible and understand that we didn't have any control over it, but we do control how we respond to it and how we spend the time that we still have now. The next one is other people. And this comes down to their opinions, the things they do, the things they say. And unfortunately, this was a big one for me. And going through this experience helped me recognize that a lot of the things that I was devoting time and effort and energy to were things that didn't align with the life that I wanted, but I did them just because. I did them because I felt maybe competitive towards someone else. I did them because someone asked me for something and I felt an obligation to say yes, even though saying yes to them meant I was saying no to something else that was more important to me. So whoever it is, you've got to make the determination, does this align with the life that I want? And sometimes people ask you for things and it does, right? But there are lots of times where it doesn't, and you're gonna be upset with yourself and you're gonna miss out on the things that are most important because you said yes to the wrong person. The next one is money. Now, I talked about this earlier in the video, but money is so fascinating because money can give so many opportunities. It can open so many doors. And it's something that literally is crucial for survival. You need money to buy food. You need money to get housing. You need money to get experiences. So money is essential for you to live the life you want. And that goes for everyone. And I think a lot of times that's why when we hear ROI, immediately it's easier for us to go to money. The problem with this is the law of diminishing returns. For example, if you get a piece of pizza and you take a bite and you're starving, that first bite is incredible. But if you have 10 boxes of pizza, by the time you get through one box and you're headed into the second, you're getting no return. As a matter of fact, you're starting to get a negative return because you're gonna throw up. You feel horrible, you feel sick. I've come to find that money can do the same thing if you don't handle it correctly. What I mean by this is money's addicting. It's fun. It's fun to build an empire. It's fun to grow. And it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. And it's exciting. But there are other things that I'm more passionate about. My wife, my kids, my family, my friends. And unfortunately, I've come to find that a lot of times I will sacrifice the things that are most important because of my addiction to money, because of my addiction to the chase. And that's all good and well, but if I really take a step back, I was able to recognize, hey, money is good, chasing money is good, investing, building businesses, helping other people do this. It's all fun. It's all a good or even a great thing, unless it gets to the point where it's affecting these other things that you know are more important, that you know bring you more joy. And so there has to be a balance, but you also have to consistently put yourself in check and say, hey, where am I at? Because one thing I've seen is a lot of times people will sacrifice going and making money, but unfortunately, that sacrifice costs them way more down the road when it comes to time with their kids, when it comes to time with their family. I can't tell you how many people I've met where they're extremely talented and they come out and they work for me and they work a month and they just crush it. They're single, not a worry in the world, and they absolutely crush it. And they're someone that could be making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 every single year. They could be investing in real estate. They could get to a point in 5 to 10 years where they could be living completely passively, where then they completely get to determine when they want to work because it's fun and when they want to spend time with their families. And instead, this person or these people, they say, hey, I'd rather go and surf. Now, for them, surfing was more important. But the big thing you've got to take into consideration with ROI is that time frame. Because a lot of these people now, 5 years down the road, now that they've got a new kid and they want to be home, but they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford the things they want for their family. They can't afford to not work to spend time with their family. And now comparing the surfing trip to that valuable time now with their wife and kids, it's a no-brainer. They easily would say, man, I wish I could have sacrificed more surfing so that I can have more time with my kids. Now, this video has gone long, but the last thing I want to say is these are the things that I've learned about myself and about the life that I want and about ultimately the perfect return on my investment. I think the most valuable thing I have to invest is my time. And it's so crucial to figure out how to spend that perfectly so that I can get the best return possible. I've kind of broken this video down according to the things that are important to me and how that's altered my perspective. But the principles are the same for you. There's so many different factors that come into play, and I am not in a place where I can tell you what's going to give you the greatest return on your investment, but you are. And a lot of people know what that is, but their actions don't align with it. And so all I would say is make sure that it aligns. Just like my example earlier, where you have a cash on cash return or a cap rate, depending on how you're investing and what you're investing, one of these could be a completely incorrect indicator to look at to determine if you're going to get a good return. Just as analyzing your life and your decisions and your time based on what someone else wants for their dream life could end you up in a very miserable life, even though you thought you were doing things correctly. So if you want to get the best return on the investment of your time, make sure that you break all of these things down, you figure it out, you reverse engineer it, and I promise you, if you do that, you're gonna live the best life possible. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell. And if you've made it to the end, I really appreciate it because this was a video I really wanted to make and I really enjoyed making, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. It is currently 2:33 a.m. and it's this late in the morning because I've got lots of things that I want to do and prioritize, but sometimes there's just not enough time in the day, and so I squeezed it in tonight. So if I look sleepy or tired or less energetic than usual, you have to let me know if you like my videos that are made at 2:30 in the morning. Thanks guys, have a great night. Or day.